Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. My best friend David and I were really into violence and gore. We watched all the bloodiest and most insane movies that we could possibly find. And in our desperate search to find more extremely violent movies, we started running out of things to watch. The quality in movies we were forced to watch continued to get worse and worse until they could no longer satisfy our need to see over-the-top action and death. That is until David came up with what he thought was a genius idea. Everything we were watching was fake. What better way to satisfy our need to see violence than to see the real thing? David had heard about a thing called the dark web from his brother, where we could find videos of people being brutalized in various different ways. No more terrible special effects and no more red food coloring. He told me that he'd talk to his brother, find out how to access it, and be at my house the next day to get started. He ran home in search of his brother, and I spent my day watching awful horror movies on Netflix. The next day, I woke up to my cell phone ringing. "Dude, I'm outside, get up!" It was spring break, and my mother was out of town on business, so I had the house all to myself. I got out, put some clothes on, and headed for the door to let David in. And before I could even get the door open completely, David shoved his way inside with a huge grin on his face. "I know how to do it, man. I know how to get on the dark web. I watched some stuff last night and it was nuts, bro. Exactly what we're looking for," David said, his grin getting wider with a second. "Sounds good, man. Let's get started," I said, wiping the crust from my eyes and following David as he led the way back to my room. He sat down at my computer and immediately pulled up a web page that was prompting him to install something. "This stuff isn't going to fry my computer, is it?" "No, my brother said he uses it all the time. It'll be fine, totally safe," David said, not taking his eyes off the screen. He explained to me that his brother met some people on the dark web that provided him with a link to a site with exactly the kind of stuff that we'd be interested in seeing. He opened up a folded-up sheet of paper from his pocket with the .onion address scribbled on it. He typed it into the Tor browser that he had just downloaded, and what looked like an empty black screen showed up. I thought he might have typed the link incorrectly, but he started to move the cursor around the page slowly until he discovered a little blue hyperlink that read, "Enter at your own risk." David clicked on the link, and the site took a minute to load up. When the web page finally opened, the background was black and all the words were in red. In big letters at the top of the page, it said, "Mercy Kill." Dismembered arms and legs that had blood dripping from each of them formed together to create the letters. And underneath the title of the website was a horizontal bar of categories to choose from: torture, porn, kidnapping, animals, and the list went on. There was also a submit button, which I assumed was how people uploaded their videos onto the website. After looking over the categories for a bit, we found one that we thought we would have what we were looking for. We clicked on Murder. Once again, the page took quite a while to load. When it did, there were 3 black boxes one after the other with titles under each of them. There were play buttons hovering in the middle of each box. The title of the first video was "This Little Piggy Went Home," followed by "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and the last one, "Russian Roulette with a Twist." The videos had no preview screen or thumbnail, so we had no idea what we were in for before clicking play. David decided to click on Russian Roulette first. It seemed like the safest bet since we knew what Russian Roulette was. The video buffered for a moment and then began. In this video, there was a man sitting in a chair. The room had a white tile floor and a white sheet hung behind the man. There was a white table in front of him with 6 handguns laid out on top of it. The man was wearing only boxer briefs and was covered in sweat. He had one hand tied to the chair, but the other was free. He looked young, but definitely older than us, and he was very skinny, like he hadn't eaten in weeks. We saw the man's mouth move, but there was no sound. And David quickly turned my computer speakers on, and we could hear a man speaking. A game. There are 6 guns on the table. One of them has a bullet in it. The rest of them do not. Pick one, put it in your mouth, and pull the trigger. Choose correctly, and I'll let you go. A voice said from behind the camera. The man in the chair reached out with his shaky free hand and grabbed the gun in the middle of the table. He brought the gun up to his face, stared down at the barrel, then closed his eyes. He whispered something inaudible to himself, put the gun in his mouth, and pulled the trigger. The sound that emitted from my speakers almost made my heart leap out of my chest, and the sheet behind the man was sprayed with blood and brain matter. His head whipped back and then forward quickly, slamming into the table with a loud bang. And soon, the white tabletop had run red with blood. From behind the camera, we could hear the other man chuckling to himself, escalating slowly into a loud maniacal laugh. He finally walked out in front of the camera. He had his back turned to the camera and walked over to the table and began removing the clips from each of the remaining handguns. He gathered them all in his hands and brought them up close for the camera. The man was bald and had a plain white face mask on. He showed us the tops of the clips, and there was a bullet loaded every one of them. "I lied," he yelled, before returning to his loud villainous laughter. The man in the mask walked back over to the body and ran his hand through the dead man's hair slowly. He placed his finger inside the hole that the bullet had left in the back of the man's head with a disgusting squishing noise. And that was the end of the video. And although I was a little shocked by the gruesomeness of the video, it was exactly what we were looking for. I felt sympathy for the people being killed in these videos, but I tried to convince myself that these were just very high-quality films. And we continued on to watch the other 2 videos. This Little Piggy Went Home consisted of a woman strapped to a metal table, getting each of her toes cut off with pliers, one by one, and having them fed to her by an obese naked man, while her mouth was held open by a dental mouth opener. And Take Me Out to the Ball Game was a video of a man in a baseball uniform who was bound to a wooden chair. He looked like he had already been severely beaten, and there were 2 men, each with a baseball bat in hand, standing in front of him in what looked like some sort of shed. "You like touching little boys, huh?" One of the men yelled at the tied-up man. The man in the uniform began to say something when one of the other men brought a baseball bat down with incredible force onto the man's crotch. The uniformed man began crying out in unspeakable pain as the other two men continued to hit him with ferocious swings in the kneecaps and stomach. And finally, when the man was beaten to the point of near unconsciousness, they decided to put him out of his misery. They both hit him one time each as hard as they could on the head, and I could hear the crushing blows connect with the skull. They then poured gasoline all over the man, sparked a match, and then torched him. They threw both bats into the fire, and the video came to an end. After watching those 3 videos, we were entertained. David began to scroll down to bring the next 3, when a small ad appeared in the bottom right corner of the screen. Would you like to subscribe for exclusive daily videos for free? Read the out-of-place looking ad. There were 2 buttons that showed up when David brought the cursor over the ad. Yes or no. And before I could say anything, David had already selected yes. Another window loaded up and it had 2 blank bars to enter a home address and an email address. And David began to type my email address when I spun him around in the chair to face me. What the hell are you doing? Are you crazy? I said. Come on, man. Exclusive videos. That sounds sick. David said with the same stupid grin he had on his face when he walked in earlier. If you want to sign up, use your email and address. I don't want my info posted somewhere on the dark web. Whatever, man, David said, closing out the window. And just when we were about to continue watching more videos, there was a knock at the door. David seemed to pay it no mind and continued scrolling through the web page. I got up and headed to the front door. When I opened the door, it was David's mother looking a bit frustrated. Hey, Anthony, is David here? She said with a smile, even though I could tell that she was upset with David about something. I figured she might have found out from his brother that he was messing around the dark web. Yeah, I'll go get him for you, I said, gesturing her to come in and heading back towards my room. I opened the door and once again, he didn't seem to notice me. When I put my hand on his shoulder, he got startled and jumped. Hey man, your mom's here and she doesn't seem happy, I said as David spun around his chair. Damn snitch, David said under his breath, confirming my suspicions. Well, I'll see you later. We did our handshake and I walked him out. His mother had gone back outside to wait for him in the car, and I waved goodbye to them and off they went. When I got back to my room, I saw that David had closed out everything on my computer, and I hadn't watched him closely enough to know how to open it back up myself. I decided to grab a bowl of cereal and hang out watching YouTube for the rest of the day. And about 2 hours after David left my house, I received a new email notification on my phone. I selected the app, and I saw that the email had nothing in the subject line and was sent from an encrypted email address. And upon opening the email, I was greeted with bold red letters that said, Congratulations! Thank you for subscribing to our daily exclusive videos. You will be sent an exclusive video from one of our users every day. You are free to unsubscribe at any time. Estimated delivery tomorrow by 6 p.m. Damn it, I said out loud to myself. David had signed me up while I was out of the room. Now, my email and address could be floating around anywhere on the dark web for anybody to see. What the hell was going to be delivered tomorrow? I thought it was just videos. Why can't they email them to me? I texted David calling him an asshole for doing something so stupid without my permission. but I didn't receive a response, and eventually I got over it and continued my day as usual. I stayed up late playing video games with a couple of my other friends, and I eventually headed to bed. The next day I woke up around 3 p.m. I texted David to see if he wanted to come over and watch some more videos. I was hoping he would say yes, so that he could teach me how to access the webpage on my own. But again, he didn't answer. I figured his mother took his phone away to punish him. My mother had left a list of things for me to do around the house, and one of them was to check the mail every day. So, I walked outside to the end of the driveway and took a quick look around when I saw an ambulance and 2 cop cars parked in front of a house a few doors down. I could see some yellow caution tape, but everything beyond it was blocked by a car. I didn't know who lived in that house, but I hoped everything was all right. I pulled open the mailbox, and inside there was a single black envelope with the letters MK stamped in red on the top right corner. I had forgotten completely that I was expecting a delivery from the website today. I went back inside and tore open the envelope, which contained a small USB drive. I took the USB to my room and debated whether it was worth the risk to plug it into my computer or not. And after a few seconds of thinking, I decided to plug it in. When I did, a folder opened up on my computer with an MP4 file inside named Honey, I'm Home. I double-clicked the file and my media player began playing the video. The video was stark and fuzzy with no sound, and I could see a faint light slowly start illuminating the video, which I soon realized was a car's headlights. And once the headlights got closer, I noticed that I was looking at a driveway to a home. I could see the corner of a garage door at the bottom right of the video. The camera was hung above the garage and was angled down in order to see anyone who could be approaching the house. The headlights continued to get brighter and brighter until the car pulled into the driveway. It was a large black Cadillac SUV. It parked and the headlights shut off, making the video look much more darker, but I could still see well enough. The door to the SUV popped open, and a man wearing a suit got out of the vehicle. I could barely see his face, but I could tell that he was a middle-aged man who obviously had a good-paying job. He closed the driver's side door and opened the back door, and as he reached in the back seat, presumably to grab something, a large man crept into frame. He was dressed in all black and had a hoodie on that covered the majority of his face from the camera. He had his hands in the pocket of his sweater and walked up behind the man who was still digging in the back seat of his car. The hooded man grabbed the businessman by the shoulder and spun him around to face him. The man in the suit put his hands up in submission, but the hooded figure pulled a large knife from his pocket and plunged it into the man's stomach multiple times. He pulled the knife up through the man's body, and the suit jacket he had on opened up. And even through the semi-blurry video, I could see that the white undershirt that the man had on turned almost completely red. The businessman fell to his hands and knees, and next to the vehicle. The hooded man then grabbed him by the neck, leaned up his head against the vehicle, and proceeded to slam the car door into his head multiple times until his head was a flattened, bloody mess. Again, I was entertained by the video. It was actually easier to detach myself from this poor guy because the camera quality was not very good and I couldn't see the expressions on his face. I texted David to let him know that the exclusive video had come in. No response. I pulled the USB out of my computer and set it on my desk. I made myself a microwave dinner and then turned on the TV. I almost never watch TV, and the last thing my mom watched before she left was the news, so that's what came on. The banner below the news anchor read, "Man brutally murdered in front of home in the name of my community." And I remember the cop cars and ambulance that I had seen earlier and knew that must have been where the killing happened. It wasn't until the news anchor went into detail that I came to a terrifying realization. A man was found dead in his driveway last night with multiple stab wounds and massive blunt force trauma to the head. The man's identity has been confirmed by his wife, father of 2, and loving husband. If you have any information that will help in the ongoing investigation, please call our tip line, the anchor stated. I immediately sprung up from the couch and ran to my room to find the USB drive. I grabbed it and plugged it into my computer as fast as possible, and my hands were shaking. I double-clicked on the folder where the video had once been, and now it was gone. I thought maybe I had deleted or moved it by accident. I searched every folder in my computer, but it was nowhere to be found, and I panicked and scrambled to find the envelope that the USB had come in, and luckily, it was still close to the top of my trash bin. I pulled it from the bin and examined it for the second time. I hadn't noticed when I first saw it, but the envelope had no stamp. It wasn't mailed, it was hand-delivered. I picked up my cell phone to call the police, but I hesitated. What if the police thought it was me? Even if they didn't, could I get arrested for going on the dark web? After all, it was most likely my fault that this man was murdered because of this stupid subscription. And before I could make a final decision, it seemed like one was made for me. My phone vibrated in my hand with a new email notification. I clicked on the notification, and the email filled my screen. In big bold letters, the email said, "Do not go to the police. Your subscription has been canceled." I scrolled down a bit and noticed that there was an attachment with the email. And after opening the attachments, I was hit with a sense of dread that made all the hairs on my body stand up. It was a photo of me taken from my kitchen window, and I was sitting on the couch, microwave dinner in hand, and the news was on the TV. This photo had been taken just a few minutes before I received the email. At this point, I was terrified, but in hopes that this person would leave me alone, I decided not to call the police. I made sure all the doors and windows were locked, closed all the blinds, turned off every light in the house, grabbed a knife from the kitchen, and locked myself in the room. The night came and I was too frightened to go to sleep, and I put my phone on silent to avoid any noise and laid down, staring up at the ceiling listening for the slightest noise. At some point, my body gave in and I fell fast asleep. I woke up to the sound of dishes suddenly clanking together. I sat up in bed and listened for a while longer until I heard what sounded like a chair being dragged lightly across the floor. I got up slowly and grabbed the knife that I had left on my bedside table. My stomach was in knots and I had already broken out into cold sweats as I reached for my door. Unlocking it caused a small click that in that moment, it sounded like the loudest noise that I have ever heard. I pulled the door open and peeked my head around the door frame into the hallway. I looked towards the living room, but it was much too dark to see anything that far away. I stepped out into the hallway, taking each step as lightly as possible. My heart pounded as if it was trying to escape my body. The door to my mother's room was still closed like it had been since she left, and I managed to make it to the living room, but I did not want to turn the lights on and notify anyone of my presence if they weren't aware already. I glanced over at the door and noticed that there was a chair propped up against the handle that I hadn't put there. I had almost no time to comprehend what was meant before I was grabbed from behind and a hand was clamped over my mouth. The knife had almost slipped from my grasp, but I was able to hang on to it. I turned it around in my hand so the blade was facing behind me, and I swung it back as hard as I could into the attacker's leg, causing him to let out a loud cry in pain. He loosened his hold on me, and I saw that he had a knife of his own. He began trying to say something, but he was interrupted when I yanked the knife from his leg, turned around and set it deep into his stomach. He then let out a large gasp, and his arms dropped to his side. The man fell to his knees and then face down to the ground. I rushed to find the light switch, and after a few seconds of feeling around in the dark, I found it. I flipped the light and looked down at my hands. They were covered in blood. So was the light switch, and so was the knife. I turned to face my attacker. He looked much smaller than the man that I had seen in the driveway video, but he did have a black hoodie on. I grabbed the man by the arm, turned him over onto his back, and what I saw froze me in shock. The person who attacked me inside my home was David. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Why would he do something like this? Was he going to kill me? We'd known each other since 3rd grade, and he wouldn't want to hurt me. Tears began to stream down my face that I had just killed my best friend, and I had no idea what was going on. After what felt like hours of thinking and crying, I decided it was finally time to call the police and explain what occurred here. When I stumbled into my room and picked up my cell phone to make a call, my crying only intensified. There, on my screen, was a text message from David sent just an hour ago. "Hey man, I don't know how to explain this, but someone is after us. I'm sorry. I'm heading over there now. I have the key you gave me. We'll be more safe if we're together," read the text message. Just then, I received 2 emails from the encrypted address, and I selected the first one. There was a link inside, and I couldn't open the link from my phone, so I powered on my computer and typed it into the Tor browser. It opened up the dark web page Mercykill that David and I had been browsing a few days earlier and took me directly to a video. The video was in glowing green night vision, and the camera was hidden in a high place. I instantly recognized my own living room, and I knew what was coming next. I saw myself stab David in the leg and the stomach. I saw him crumble to the ground slowly, creating a puddle of blood. And the video was titled, "Oops." And just below it, there was a banner that said, "Thank you for your submission." At this point, my sadness became anger, and I swore that I would get revenge on whoever forced me to do this to my best friend. I snatched my phone from the desk and proceeded to open the other email. This email had an attachment. I clicked on it, and a picture opened up. I turned my phone on its side, and the picture enlarged on my screen. The photo was of me. I was on my knees beside David's body, hands covered in his blood, tears running down my face. And what disturbed me the most was the angle that the photo was taken from. It was from a different vantage point than the video. The only way anyone could have taken this picture was from inside the house in the hallway. And as I started putting pieces of the puzzle together, I heard the door to my mother's room creak open. And here are the top comments from my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.